Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is the Science Dispatch Podcast. My name is Cameron English. That handsome gentleman over there, Dr. Chuck Dinnerstein, Director of Medicine at the American Council on Science and Health. Chuck, what's going on, man? Great to see you.
Nice to be seen. Great to see you, too. Welcome to the fall. Though, has the temperature changed where you are? Is it?
It has. In fact, I have my whole house fan on. I don't know if people will see this, but you can see my beautiful locks flowing in the breeze.
Yes, they're flowing now.
Yep. I'm loving it. It's nice and cool. It puts me in a better mood, I find. But what doesn't put me in a good mood, transition, alcohol poisoning. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. This is a story from our dear colleague, Dr. Josh Bloom, Director of Chemical and Pharmaceutical Sciences. This is right up his alley as a chemist. Exactly. This is called Brazil's Alcohol Poisoning Outbreak. Can you protect yourself against methanol? Here's the summary, and take it away from here, Doctor. So Josh writes, a new Barron's report describes more than 100 cases of suspected methanol poisoning in and around Sao Paulo in Brazil, including at least one confirmed death. From upscale bars to beachfront kiosks, Brazilians are suddenly wary of what's in their glass. The culprit is methanol, a chemical cousin of ethanol that's cheap, hard to detect, and dangerously toxic. Here's the science behind the poisoning. All right, Dr. Dinnerstein, what's going on?
The science behind the poisoning is pretty straightforward. Methanol, which is a simpler alcohol than ethanol, having one less carbon in it, is metabolized into formaldehyde. And formaldehyde is what we use to preserve corpses. So it's not good to be ingesting significant quantities of that. As a result, the formaldehyde ultimately forms formic acid, which parenthetically is what ants use to take out ants that are diseased. It's that strong a poison. And even small amounts of that gather over time, especially in the optic nerve, which is the reason that methanol causes blindness. Methanol has a long history as an adulterant for ethanol, because it's odorless, colorless, tasteless, so it can be added to a distillation to pump up the volume, so to speak. And so methanol has a long history. From the point of view of the U.S., we had the same problems during Prohibition when methanol was used to cut ethanol, or when people running moonshine stills didn't get the distillation quite right and wound up with methanol in their final product. So I was actually interested in trying to understand why this would be a problem in Brazil, because you would think, it's modern day and age. It's easily enough to find properly distilled alcohol on the planet. So I went and took a little dive in that direction, and it's actually fairly interesting. As it turns out, about 30% of Brazil's alcohol is adulterated in one form or another. And that has to do with the way it's priced, because the adulterated form sells for about 35% less. And so it becomes an economic advantage to people looking for a cheaper form of alcohol. In addition to that, there are a number of regulatory loopholes that, combined with ineffective policing, has resulted in a great amount of counterfeiting. And that's how methanol has gotten into the food supply, as it were, in Brazil. So really, outside of Josh's chemical concerns, this really gets down to a problem that people are looking for cheap sources of alcohol, because I guess it's actually true that Sao Paulo in Brazil is a party place, and that because of lax regulatory standards and monitoring by regulatory agencies, there is a lot of fraudulent adulterated alcohol on the market.
I've been reliably informed that all you need to do is legalize harmful substances, and that solves the problem. The libertarian fairy comes and drops her dust on society, and all the problems go away, right? Right? Why haven't they legalized alcohol in Brazil? Why don't they just do that?
But I believe it is. It is legalized.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me? Are you telling me that there might be more to a complex societal problem than a Milton Friedman book? Is that what you're telling me, Chuck?
Why do I feel entrapped?
Well, I mean,
yeah,
and
I'm gonna say it loud, say it proud. That as it turns out, simply legalizing a substance does not resolve all of the issues. I mean, we've talked about this several times in the past. Drug dealers are notoriously bad at quality control. They seem to optimize themselves for profitability over safety, and this seems to be one of those cases.
I'm obviously being incredibly snarky toward my harm reduction friends, but I think it actually is a good question. You know, what dynamic is occurring there? I know you mentioned there's some corruption and so forth. But again, the argument that I've been told is that when you legalize a substance and you at least create a pathway for it to be legally available, then the bad guys, the suppliers that don't follow the law, get crowded out of the market, or they get pushed out of the market by the people that don't want to poison their customers. So, you know, I mean, again, it's a snarky point in my favor. I think.
But that good pushes out bad? Is that?
Well, I mean, that's what, and I'm not imputing him here. But we had Dr. Jeff Singer on the show a few weeks ago, and he said one of the ways you could reduce heroin or fentanyl overdoses is you could allow people to buy their drugs from CVS, just like they can buy vodka. And then as a result of that, they're going to buy it from CVS, manufactured by Big Pharma or whatever. And then as a result, you're going to see fewer people dying, you know. So I guess maybe that dynamic is still possible, but
there's the other part of that free market libertarian approach is that in the free market, price often drives the choice that the consumer makes. And when you're talking about alcohol that's 35% less in one version versus another, and one version being counterfeit but looks real, there's a lot of motivation to buy the cheaper quality materials. I mean, for alcohol, you see it in a lot of ways. I mean, when you talk about, you know, buying a cocktail, you know, the first question is whether you want well vodka or premium vodka, because the premium vodka is going to add another $8 to the price of the drink. So, I mean, we have that kind of price arbitrage going on, but I think what happens is the bad actors find a way to undercut the legitimate supply. To pick another example, the cannabis market in New York has been in free fall because the cannabis dealers that have gone through the New York State regulatory system and pay their taxes and so on and so forth are not getting any protection from the 1,500 bodegas in New York City alone that sell cannabis that's not been state approved. So, I mean, we see it a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. I'm just speaking in generalities because I really don't know, you know, but it's a much poorer country. And so there's probably all sorts of variables that are in play that we don't think about as Americans, you know. And again,
I think that, you know, again, if you can provide what appears to be a substitute product at a lower price, people are going to move towards that lower price point. And this is just another example of how that can happen for a legitimate or an illegitimate product. The price points may differ, and the response of demand to price may change, but the basic dynamics that the lower the price, the greater the demand, I think still holds.
See, what's curious, and by the way, not all the details are clear yet, because Josh doesn't go into this, but I looked at an AP report on this, and they said that this is, well, I guess Josh does mention briefly, this is happening in Sao Paulo at major bars and social gatherings. So it's not Biff out in the jungle making his own moonshine who's poisoning his buddies.
No,
These are tourists
organized crime. Organized crime.
They're going to high-end bars and paying, I don't know, $15 for a cocktail, and then they're losing their sight in some cases or dying.
Right, because whoever is supplying the bar is stepping on the product, and a lot of the background shows that they've developed very good counterfeit bottles, counterfeit labeling, so that it's hard to, if you trust your supplier, then why would you be concerned? And again, a crafty criminal organization is not going to put methanol into all of the product, just into enough to bring increased profitability. If you buy a case and 4 bottles have been stepped on, you've increased your margin. You don't have to do it to all 12.
I don't remember if Josh goes into this, but how much methanol would it take to do damage?
That I don't know, and he did not. He really harped on 2 pieces. He harped on the metabolism of it, and he talked about the possibility of a test strip, so you could test the product. But all of the alternatives for testing were too expensive, and there's no magical test strip, which gets you to another part of the free market that we often lose sight of, is that there is a level of trust of who you're purchasing the product from that makes a difference. When Adam Smith was writing about the free market and the invisible hand several centuries ago, we were living in small towns and villages, and you could know who your supplier was by reputation. That's, in fact, one of the important roles that gossip has in terms of helping us regulate the reputation of the people around us.
Dare I say stigma?
Well, stigma attaches
a social consequence for your bad behavior is what I hear you saying.
Well, yes, it's that takes us to a whole nother place, because even though corporations are now considered, when it comes to electoral campaign money, as individuals, they are not treated as individuals before the law. So far there's been no corporation that has evidenced bad behavior that's even gotten a timeout, let alone, had to go to some kind of corporate jail for some period of time.
Yeah, there are some inconsistencies in our legal system, shall we say? Like Elizabeth Holmes is, she's at the federal pen party, but that's not a universal result when you break the law. When someone like her breaks the law,
not at all. I mean, if you can find some, corporate person that takes responsibility, then I guess that it falls to them. So, from my point of view, I would much rather, understanding that we're never going to hold corporations liable in that sense, then it's fine with me if we take away their free speech rights. Did I say that out loud? I guess I did.
How dare you? We're getting far afield here, but there's some big companies, a lot of them, in fact, but they get in good with whatever the social campaign is, So like, there's not a lot, but there's some in the pharma world that have really jumped on the opioid addiction crusade, and their whole business is selling the partial agonist opioid that everyone's going to need, right? So if you crack down on the opioids that people were getting from the doctors, well, you can't get those anymore because of addiction, but you want some Suboxone? We got it for you. It's not good for your teeth, but you want, you know what I mean? So that's another difficult thing. Anyways, that's a whole other topic. The economics of this are really fascinating because it just sounds like it's a different country. There's different people involved. It's not as simple as, we'll just round up all the illicit liquor and lock everyone up, or it's a free for all and, the invisible hand.
There's definitely more to it than either the prohibitionists or the singers of the world would like us to believe. Is that fair?
Yeah, it is. It is. You know, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of like a former smoker with my libertarianism. Like I just just have this vicious streak now when people say things, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Anyways, okay, so if you're in Brazil, Dr. Dinnerstein, presumably it's best to avoid cocktails for the time being?
Yes.
Okay.
Wine, I think, is probably safe on wine.
Okay. Yeah, I think they said fermented stuff is, maybe there's a chemistry lesson in there, like why do people not dilute fermented stuff with methanol?
God only knows.
Okay.
Wine is, usually generally a lower proof thing, and I guess, may change the color, the taste of it. Maybe not the taste of it. The color certainly will change. Maybe it'll work on a Chardonnay.
Yeah. Interestingly, the article I read said avoid clear. If you're going to drink cocktails, especially avoid the clear stuff. So anyways, okay, so an ounce prevention is worth a pound of cures. Again, problem solved here on the Science Dispatch podcast. Once again, if you want to read the article without listening to my snark, it's called Brazil's Alcohol Poisoning Outbreak. Can you protect yourself against methanol by Dr. Josh Bloom. That's on acsh.org. Go to the website, click the subscribe tab, punch in your email address. We'll send you the stories we publish. The ones you read are the ones we talk about usually. Follow us on, where are we at? Instagram, YouTube, X, and Facebook. ACSH, Matter of Facts, hosted by Anna Dolosky. She does our videos, our infographics. Very good on camera, funny, entertaining, and educational. Go check that out and subscribe. We greatly appreciate it, and we will see you next time.